Because at the time when the budgets were done, the persons who were affected in the Grenadines may not have even thought of coming on a vacation. So the honourable member has a very narrow view of the contents of a business plan. So to answer the honourable member, the business plan for the financial year 2010 made provision for marketing and promotion. This video must at all times be seen as a promotional tool. Mr. Speaker, what is important here is that the board raised a flag on what it considered to be procedures followed which were unclear. The board acknowledged that the minister has certain powers pursuant to section 12 and 23 in what the board referred to as the ministerial prerogative, quote unquote. However, the board noted that in the future that certain procedural protocols should be put in place for payments. What is more though, Mr. Speaker, is that the board did not raise a flag to say that there was evidence of fraud, malfeasance, or embezzlement. There is absolutely no evidence of fraud or deception. The board understood the issues very well, and the requisite protocols have been put in place for future reference. This is not a case like what happened with Bienvenue de Ben Kusume Adames. I'm obliged.
Did you hear those things? We have in this third clip Mr. Caesar, the minister, saying, and I quote, "The honorable member has a very narrow view of the contents of a business plan." He said that because he is claiming that when I asked whether the board included the plan to use Mr. Skinny Fabulous's video in their business plan, he's claiming that I expect to see the actual fund written there, and he claims that I have a narrow view of the business plan. But he's misleading the House and the people completely. He's lyingly claiming that the budget addressed Skinny Fabulous's video under general marketing and promotions. But this is not true, and I want to give you an example. In the actual Tourism Authority budget under marketing and promotions, you have a line, an actual table of items that show you different things that the budget was to deal with. Let me give you an example. Take a look at this. You have, for example, under tourism promotion, you have special interest brochures, and they plan to spend a total of $126,000 in 2010 on special interest brochures. And then they break it down line by line and tell you you'll have brochures on cruise, sailing, diving, etc., including weddings and honeymoons. And the brochures on weddings and honeymoons would cost $15,750. That is less than the $40,000 they claim was spent for the Skinny Fabulous video. So if you could outline $15,000 for wedding and honeymoon brochures in the budget, why can't you outline $40,000 for Mr. Fabulous's video that you say you are going to use as a promotional tool? So for the minister to give the impression that my understanding of a budget is limited, it is narrow, because I asked to see the figure, why was it not in the budget? That is completely misleading, and he would have used the example of some ticket cost versus general travel. He would have used it inappropriately, designed to fool the House, because I didn't ask about Mr. Fabulous's travel. I asked about the budget that the Tourism Authority Board should have approved to implement concerning the use of the video as a marketing tool. But when you look at this final clip, or rather listen, because this is very important, and I want you to take a listen now, and you'll hear what is going on here.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the answer given by the honourable member to the questions, which I consider to be limited or lacking, but in light of the answer, I want to ask the honourable member if indeed the board did give approval for the use of the video for promotional purposes, as in harmony with their business plan and according to the Act. Is the honourable member aware of the fact that 3 months after the launch of the initiative, in the minutes of the Tourism Authority, one board member by the name of John West asked the chairman about approval of the funds. It is minuted in the minutes. And the answer to the question was such that the chairman of the very board could not answer. He had to indicate that they had to await the presence of the minister who was absent, who was on vacation. So is he aware, I'm asking, is he aware that 3 months after this initiative was launched, the very board could not answer the question concerning approval of the funds without the minister's presence? I'm asking.
Now, before you stand, we're not going to take the entire day with this question, but we must understand that everyone will want to make sure clarity is made. From my understanding from the Honourable Minister, from what he just read, I think he was clearing a point pertaining to where the board, the minister have certain authority over the board. If I am clear, I'll ask the minister to make that clear, please.
Mr. Speaker, the question is asked in several parts. I noted clearly, and this is in answering the supplementary question, that whilst the honourable member is asking the question as to whether an approval was granted or not, the board stated clearly that there isn't any evidence of any embezzlement or malfeasance, and that certain protocols should be followed in the future. That's it. So you're going to sit here and argue for $35,000 that went to Skinny Fabulous?
Did you hear that? In this last clip, you have the Honorable Sabota Caesar actually saying, so you're going to sit here and argue all day about $35,000 that went to Skinny Fabulous? Wow. But before I touch that, let's just examine some things. First of all, he actually admits that the board failed to follow the procedures and indicated that they will do so in the future. But I want to let the nation know, and I'll have to continue this another time, that it wasn't just a failure to follow some simple procedures. It was a matter that is written in the law, the very law of the Tourism Authority Act 2007 that was passed by the House of Parliament. And this law should be followed. So if he's claiming that procedures pertaining to the expenditure being written into the business plan of the Tourism Authority Board and approved and so on and implemented by them, if he's claiming that those procedures weren't followed and that they will be followed in the future, then he's actually answering my question, which I wanted to find out, which is that they weren't followed. And did you notice he couldn't answer my supplementary question when I boldly asked him, if the board approved, why does the Tourism Authority Board minutes show that you had one board member questioning about the approval of the video, and you had the chairman not being able to give an answer about the approval because he said at the time the minister was out of state and he couldn't follow up on it? If they, in fact, the board of 2010 did in fact approve the expenditure, had it initially in their business plan for 2010, they would not have to be questioning 3 months after the launch of the video, questioning the approval. And so what we see here, my dear people, is that Mr. Caesar was practicing insincerity and this kind of lack of seriousness in the house where they try to politic and make everything about playing politics and carry on is not good enough. Now the question is, when Mr. Caesar said 35,000 went to Skinny Fabulous, was that a mistake or a confession? To date, he has not corrected himself, and you, my dear people, ought to be the judge. This kind of foolish behavior, bias on the part of the speaker, trickery and deception in answering questions, it hinders the proper functioning of the House of Assembly. It is a shame and a dishonor. Now, on a brighter note, look at this short clip showing you a recent handover that I did on behalf of Arizona resident but Vincentian-born Ethniel Van Schaik. Ms. Van Schaik got these 2 kits of medical supplies and equipment from an organization called Project Cure, and I was pleased to cooperate with her in handing them over to Nemo. Take a look. Good morning, everyone, and a special good morning to Nemo. I am here today on behalf of a lady called Miss Ethniel Van Schaik. She's Vincentian but living in Arizona for many years. And Ms. Van Schaik heads a non-profit organization by the name of the People of SVG. After the flood took place in Georgetown, she wanted to contribute in a charitable way to efforts to have the people who had suffered recuperate from the experience. And so, through an organization called the Benevolent Healthcare Foundation, their project called Project Cure, Ms. Van Schaik managed to get 2 kits of medical supplies and equipment to be brought here to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to help with the victims of the flood. And she has asked me to hand them over to Nemo. These kits, I must give an idea of what they contain. There are several pieces of medical equipment and supplies, including but not limited to stethoscopes, IV supplies kit, laceration kits and suture kits, several different types and sizes of hypodermic needles and other types of syringes, specimen cups, a lot of bandage rolls and other band-aids and other items for covering cuts and bruises, hand towels, and other skin supplies. Ms. Van Schaik wanted me to express that a lot of these supplies, the donations, were taken care of by Americans themselves who cooperated with her in ensuring that these kits were donated to Vincentians.
To Mrs. Batiste, I know we have been in discussions for some time with the medical supplies, and I've expressed to you the need for having such supplies and why do we need such supplies. And the Vincentian diaspora, Mrs. Van Schaik of Arizona, we want to ask you to give her our thanks on behalf of NEMO for these supplies. The spirit and the contributions from the diaspora has been tremendous following both Hurricane Thomas and the April floods. And we want to thank all those persons in the diaspora who really have made some contribution to assist the people and to alleviate their suffering following these major events. And now again, we have these donations of medical supplies. We can assure you that these supplies will be inspected by the medical stores, because we often believe that any equipment that comes into the country, we do not necessarily have that medical expertise to determine the use. So we have invited Mr. Mocha from medical stores to actually examine these equipment and ensure that they're of good quality and actually can be used for in meeting the needs of our people. So today is a good day for us. We want to express our thanks. We still have persons who we are assisting within the shelters, and some of the donations, especially from premier distributors, will actually assist us in meeting those gaps and providing for the needs until those persons can actually return to the home. Thank you to the media for being here today, and wish everyone a blessed day.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be.
Thank you once again, Ms. Van Schaik, as an example of the diaspora in helping your fellow men. Wonderful patriotism in action. And thank you, Nemo, for your accommodation. My dear people, our time is up. But remember that you may contact me at servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com, or you may call me at telephone number 1784-528-1015. Until our next program, may God be with you. Bye-bye.